Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Recently, I saw a couple of articles about Donald Trump's victory in South Carolina. And this morning, when I woke up, I watched the ABC news program, their Sunday news program, and they are talking about Donald Trump's victory in South Carolina. We all know that Donald Trump also won the primary in New Hampshire. And this man is poised to win the nomination of the Republican Party. And he could very well become the president of the United States. This clown, this damn buffoon, could be the president of the United States of America. This racist, this sexist, this troglodyte could be our president. And while that we face that reality, you have fools actually encouraging black people not to vote. You have people who are respected actually urging people not to vote. I can't think of anything more ignorant than that. I can't think of anything more irresponsible than that, more stupid than that. Our ancestors and our elders died for the right to vote. Our elders were beaten by the police for the right to vote. And you fools want to just throw that out. Throw it out the window like it means nothing. What the hell is wrong with you? There's too much at stake for us to sit on the sidelines. And in the words of Malcolm X, anybody can sit. There's nothing revolutionary about sitting out of an election. That's not some bold act of rebellion. That's an act of cowardice. That's an act of intellectual laziness. That's an act of stupidity. There's too much at stake for you Negroes, you idiots, to be sitting on the sidelines. As Malcolm said, a fool could sit, a chump could sit, anybody can sit. It's time for us to do some standing and some fighting. And one way to stand, one way to fight is by exercising our constitutional and legal right to vote. If your vote had no value, do you think that these people would be trying to suppress your vote if it had no value? Do you think they would be creating all these laws to make it more difficult for you to vote if your vote had no value? There's a reason why they disenfranchise people who have been convicted of crimes even after they've served their time. Those laws were created to disenfranchise black people, to disenfranchise us. If you study the history, there's a reason why they're coming up with these voter ID laws all around the country to suppress that black vote. There's no proof that there's some problem of in-person voter fraud. They just want to make it more difficult for black people to vote. They want to put up as many obstacles as possible. And there's a reason why, because they know the power of the vote. They prevented us from voting for years upon years. They had literacy tests, they had poll taxes. They did that to disenfranchise and oppress black people. That's why they did that. That's why they were able to maintain white supremacy in the South. That's why they were able to maintain segregation and Jim Crow and all that, because they had effectively disenfranchised black people, and black people had no influence whatsoever over the political process. Yet you have these fools running around here encouraging people not to vote. They wouldn't have all these laws to disenfranchise us if our vote didn't mean anything. They wouldn't be purging voters from the list. They wouldn't be making it more difficult for groups to register voters if our vote didn't have any value. But yet you have these people who think they're all conscious, think they're all intelligent, actually encouraging black people not to vote. These people who do this are doing nothing but suppressing the black vote, and they are suppressing black power and influence. Only a fool would voluntarily surrender a weapon that can be used in their arsenal for liberation and advancement. And our vote is such a weapon. You know, people say things like, there's no difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. Only someone who doesn't study the issues would make such a ridiculous claim. Only a fool would say that. When you look at the positions of the parties on the issues that are of importance, you will understand that there is a stark and clear distinction between the two parties. And you would also understand that there are not just the two parties, you have third parties. If you don't want to vote for the two major parties, at least vote for a third party candidate, an independent candidate. At least exercise your right in that way. But there are differences between the major parties. Differences on affirmative action. Differences on voting rights. There is a party right now obstructing the Voting Rights Act right now. The Supreme Court struck down a major provision of the Voting Rights Act. And because of that, our vote is vulnerable. And you have people lobbying to correct that problem, but there is obstruction in Congress. And who is obstructing in Congress? Right-wing Republicans. When you look at the issue of abortion, when you look at the issue of immigration, when you look at the issue, again, of affirmative action, of policing, of criminal justice, when you look at the issues of Wall Street and poverty and education and all these issues, you will see that there are clear differences between the parties. But it's the intellectual, lazy people who don't want to look into the issues. They don't want to study the issues. They don't want to compare and contrast the parties. They don't want to investigate third-party candidates. Instead, they just want to opt out like some cowards. There's too much at stake for us to sit this election out.